Thank you for taking a few minutes to learn about Gravity software. Today I want to give you an overview of Gravity's features and capabilities. Our first question we always get at Gravity is who are we? We've been around over 11 years, and as you can see on this page, we've submitted our software to many different sites for reviews, and we get very high marks. We win awards from different rating sites, including our users submitting reviews on us independently, and we get high marks on the product, on our support, and our capabilities. While Gravity is based in Detroit, we have a global footprint. And that's because of some of the technology we have, capabilities and features that we have. And so we see a demand for Gravity all around the world. And some of our multi-company, multi-currency features that really drive that acceptance. Also see on here many companies that are using Gravity, some of our customers. If you go to our website, which is gogravity.com, you can see case studies where these companies have come from products like QuickBooks or Sage onto Gravity. We position Gravity in between what we would call entry-level products and enterprise-level products. So on the left, you would find products like QuickBooks and Xero, and they're very good products for what they were intended to do. But when you get into complex organizations, organizations with multiple companies, they become very difficult to work with. On the right, we would have what we call enterprise applications. And these are also very good applications, but they're usually very large, they're very complex, very expensive. We wanted to have a lot of the features that you would find in an enterprise application, but the simplicity and ease of use that you would find in an entry-level application. So at Gravity, we think we've fit that position very well by, again, combining strong feature set with an easy-to-use application. Our technology stack is based upon a Microsoft managed platform. So the Microsoft Power Platform has over 20 million users of it, and it runs in the Microsoft data centers around the world. We get to live on top of that platform and use all the features of that platform. So the platform is managed by Microsoft for security, for disaster recovery, for reliability. They, protect the data from ransomware and intrusions and so on by outside parties. We have a very strong, very secure platform that is managed by Microsoft, and it allows us at Gravity to focus on our application, and it allows our users to be comfortable that they get a professional organization in Microsoft managing, again, the security and disaster recovery and so on. In addition to being built on this platform, we also get to use the tools that are in this platform. And one of those tools is Power BI. It's a visualization tool, a dashboarding tool. There is no such thing as one size dashboard fits everybody. And that's what a lot of applications try to deliver is, oh, we have pretty dashboards, but they're generic. With Power BI, you can build dashboards easily that are important to you with your information in the context that you want to see it. Another one of those tools is Power Automate. It's Microsoft's cloud workflow tool. It allows us to perform all kinds of automations above and beyond what Gravity does standard out of the box. So if there's a unique process that we need to instill, we can use Power Automate to do that. But it also allows us to do things like approvals. And because of the way this workflow engine is configured, we can do approvals on any transaction. So we have a bill coming into Gravity, and we want to approve that bill. We want approvals before payments are made. We want approvals before journal entries posted of a certain size. Any transaction, any record in Gravity can have an approval process, and they can be very simple or very complex. Because it's an engine, we're not limited to just two levels of approvals, for example, or certain confined kind of ways of doing an approval. And we'll look at that a little bit more in a moment when we look at the product. Let's take just another look at the security that Microsoft has. Microsoft has a cloud security portal over all of their cloud services. That doesn't mean you have to use all the services. About a third of our users use products like Gmail and G Suite, but if you are using the whole Microsoft stack, you get to use the same login and password for all the applications as email and Gravity and so on. But what's most important here is that cloud security portal that Microsoft has that's over all of the applications. And this is the same type of security that a Fortune 1000 company would have. We have a very, very strong, very robust security system overreaching Gravity and any other Microsoft applications. Let's look now at the functionality of Gravity itself. Everything here in white is part of our core product that we deliver. Of course, the full accounts payable stack from entering bills to making payments, managing vendors, so on. The accounts receivable stack, managing customers from sales order to invoicing to cash receipts. Our bank book is part of our financial stack of working with banks, credit cards, bringing that data in, being able to do electronic reconciliations, being able to take credit cards and make transactions directly from them. Use a service embedded called Plaid that allows us to talk to about 12,000 financial institutions in North America and bring that data in electronically. Budgeting, of course, general ledger. Consolidations, which isn't shown on here, but is part of our general ledger capabilities. We have an investment management tool. The investment management subledger is used to track investments in outside organizations. We have a lot of private equity firms using Gravity, and when we would meet them, they'd say, well, we have all these spreadsheets of all of our investments, not connected, not secure, so on. So with our investment subledger, they can actually keep all that information in Gravity, reported to the general ledger automatically, incorporated into our accounts payable for making payments, fully integrated. Multi-currency, we have the ability to have a three-tier currency system, which I'll describe more in a moment. We also have a currency reporting service built in, so we can automatically get daily FX rates. And of course, one of the core tenets is our multi-entity capabilities, the ability to have multiple companies sharing this platform. Operational pieces such as a bill of material, inventory, so on. For organizations that need that because they're more physical product related, for example, we have capabilities to manage that. Insights, along with our dashboarding with Power BI, our strong reporting capabilities. We'll also see again that Power BI business intelligence, which I'll show you when we look at the product. And of course, the platform we're on, we talked about a lot of security, but because of its architecture, because it's a Microsoft platform, it's very capable with a very strong API for integrations. We have a very strong published API that can be used by virtually any developer in most current languages to be able to connect to Gravity securely, move data in from outside systems, pull data from Gravity into other systems. So it provides a very strong capability that is not proprietary, very, again, Microsoft based. Now the items in red here are actually advanced items. These are optional based on needs. The first two items really work with our payables management capability. So AP automation is where we get PDFs from our vendors who are emailing us bills, and we bring them into Gravity automatically as we read the PDF. And that allows us to quickly and easily get that information into Gravity. And again, we'll look at some of these capabilities. ACH payments, this is where we can directly pay in North America organizations through the bank's ACH or automated clearinghouse network. Within Gravity, as long as we have appropriate vendor information, we can basically push one button and all my payments go out electronically. It really reduces the amount of work to run the whole AP process by getting data in and making payments. For organizations that need fixed assets, we have a fixed asset module that can do book and tax depreciation, for example, integrated to our AP. So that gives us a lot of capabilities for organizations that need to manage a lot of physical assets. Our payment portal is part of our credit card processing built into Gravity, where we can actually have customer of yours log securely onto a portal, enter their information about a credit card or ACH information so that we can bill them electronically by charging their credit card. It's secure because the customer enters their data directly into the portal. We never see it except the last four digits. So it's just a way of being able to extend Gravity to your customer base if needed for those customers that are going to be making an electronic payment to you. Requisition management, that allows us to extend our purchasing out to an organization where individual users can make requisitions that are funneled to the purchasing department, consolidated, and then obviously make a purchase order to a vendor. So, and again, there's approval processes through all of this. Revenue recognition and subscription billing also work together. Subscription billing is a repetitive billing engine for organizations that want to basically create a bill on a cycle, let's say it's monthly, I want to automatically charge a credit card for that customer and then send them a receipt. Subscription billing can do that and do that automatically where it's very hands off. And so the whole cycle can happen automatically. And there's a lot of flexibility in the frequency, like is it quarterly, is it annual, for example? What type of process is going to happen? Do we email the customer? Do we not email the customer? Revenue recognition works independently but also with subscription billing to take long-term contracts and break them into monthly buckets where we want to be able to record that portion every month. So if we have an annual contract with a customer, I only want to recognize 1/12 of that each month, revenue recognition will do that for me. It will break that annual contract into the 12 buckets, and then again, allowing me to easily record the appropriate revenue in the appropriate period. It also does it with expenses. If I have long-term prepaids like insurance, and I want to basically, record 1/12 of my annual insurance contract every month, it can do that also. So these are optional modules, but this gives you kind of a quick high-level view of some of the functionality. But I want to dive into a few of the core features of Gravity. So our architecture of how we handle companies, a lot of accounting systems will keep each company as an island independently, which means if you have 10 companies, you have 10 charts of accounts. You may have the same vendor in there 10 times. And so that becomes very difficult, especially as you start to scale larger and larger to say, okay, now I'm going to have 20 companies with 20 charts of accounts. So at Gravity, we've done it quite a bit different. First off, we have all of our companies in a single database. There's still security by company, so I can easily say that an individual can only see one company or two companies, but not know that the other companies exist. In my architecture, we start with having our master files like customer lists, vendor lists, charts of accounts, all centralized and shared with the companies. So what does that mean? First off, I can easily develop a chart of accounts, and all 20 companies will have that chart of accounts immediately. If I add a new account to the chart, all 20 companies will have that new account. I don't have to go into each company and add it separately. Same with vendors, same with customers, for example. But we don't have to share everything with everybody. So we can say that in a mixed organization, like one of our customers, they have farms, they have a car wash, they have some coffee shops. So there will be some accounts or some vendors that are specific to a farm that we don't really need to see when we're looking at a car wash because we don't want to make a mistake, or we don't just see 1,000 vendors when we're only 100 are relevant. So you can share from that master list selectively. You can share them as, to one, to multiple, or to all. So that way, when you're looking at an individual company, you just see the relevant vendors, you see the relevant accounts. So again, makes it very nice and easy to do that. Where some of the power comes into Gravity is when we start talking about things like intercompany activities. So one of the most common things that happens is we get a bill, let's say at our holding company, and I want to be able to allocate that cost to more than one company. In Gravity, you can allocate that bill to multiple companies. So one company is going to pay the bill, that may be our holding company, but I want to be able to put in 3, 4, 5, 6 line items, each with a portion of the expense to a different company or different entity, as we call it. So this makes it really nice and easy for you to be able to do one activity, one transaction. What will happen is when that transaction is posted, each company will get their share of the expense as you've delineated on the line items, and the due tos and due froms between the companies are all balanced by us. So you don't have to worry about having to open up each company separately, remembering which portion is theirs, transposing or forgetting to put one piece of it in. At the end of the month, your transactions, your intercompany activity should be balanced because we're doing the work and we're making sure it's balanced. Same thing with journal entries. Quite often we see where they'll have a common paymaster paying payroll on behalf of multiple companies. For us, for Gravity, it's as simple as bringing in and importing one payroll transaction. That one payroll transaction can list all the companies and their share of benefits and so on. And with that, I will easily make one transaction in Gravity, one import, one review, push one button, all companies are up to date with their share of the payroll expense, and the due to and due froms are also balanced again. So again, the intercompany activity is greatly simplified in Gravity, so you don't have to do all the extra work of opening each company, making transactions, so on. We also have the ability here to do what I would call like a management fee type invoice between companies. So typically, if we want to have one company who has a lot of the overhead, but we're not going to break it out, on each bill, but we want to charge once a month a management fee, company A can create an invoice to company B, and when that invoice is created and posted in company A, we will create the AP automatically for you. So we'll create the second half of that transaction. We'll convert the revenue items like management fee income to expense items like salaries or rent or so on the AP side, simplifying the process of being able to do a management fee or intercompany type of bill. Now, there's a lot of additional features in here when we start talking about Gravity's multi-company capabilities, but these are just some of the highlights. Finally, I want to just point out, besides consolidating financial reports, we also can consolidate operational reports. And what that means is I'm doing AP at multiple companies. I want to see how much the organization owes all of the vendors at once. In a lot of systems, you'd have to run the AP aging for each company separately, merge them in Excel, a lot of work there to see an overall picture. With Gravity, you can say, show me all the AP aging for all the companies on one report, push a button, and you have it. So again, the operational sides of it as well as the financial sides can be shown and consolidated. So just a moment to talk about how currencies work. For organizations that have a need for multi-currency, we also have the ability to have a reporting service that can do daily, weekly, monthly FX updates for you. You just set that up once, and then the system will do that for you. But the way Gravity has its three-tier currency model, each company or entity, as we call it, in the middle can have its own home currency. So what that means is we can have a company here in the US, we can have a company in Europe, and the company in Europe can report in euros, and the company in the US can report in dollars. That's their home currency. You can pick a single consolidation currency that all the companies get consolidated into. So that we want to do a consolidated report. In this case, the European companies are going to be consolidated in US dollars, can bring all the companies together. So you'll pick that single consolidation currency. And then, of course, transacting, we can transact in currencies, as many currencies as you need to. So I can be in Euro company and transact in yen, for example, transact in dollars, transact in British pounds. It just depends upon the currencies you need to transact in. You can have bank accounts in different currencies and so on. So we have a very strong currency model, but this gives us the ability to do a consolidated report while doing native reporting in the home currency for each company. We do support doing consolidations correctly using both GAAP and international financial IFRS type regulations. So we have that capability, as well as being able to automatically record realized gains and losses on activity. And we do reporting on unrealized gains and losses. If for those organizations who want to monthly record the unrealized gain or loss on activities, we can simplify that for you too. Again, a lot of capabilities here for those organizations that need it. And then finally, I just want to talk a moment about our reporting structure. First off, our reporting structure is very, very flexible. Combines kind of some of the traditional ideas of an account number with the capabilities of using what we call dimensions. So first, there's three main pieces to our structure. The first piece is the entity code. That's a company. So if you have 20 entities, you'll have 20 companies listed. Second piece is an account number. Now, the way it's architected is defined by the individual reporting needs. Some companies may have one segment, 4 characters. Other organizations may have 2 segments, like 4 and 3 or 4 and 2. Some may have 3 or 4 segments. We allow the segments to have meaning and to be used in financial reporting. For example, a second segment could be a department. A third segment could be a location. So it's just using the account number as kind of more traditional accounting systems have done. We couple that with the ability to use dimensions. Dimensions are like financial tags. In products like QuickBooks, they would call it a class. Other accounting systems may or may not have dimensions like this, but what it is a financial tag. And for Gravity with dimensions, you can define independent dimension bucket. Like here I have 3, grant, employee, and property. I can then define rules. I can say every time we have travel and expense, I must record an employee on that. Or every time I have certain types of revenue and expenses, I have to put a property on it. All of these components come into play when we look at doing a financial report. I can do a financial report on a property, and then I can do, if there's, let's say, 3 properties in one company, I can have individual, each property can have a financial statement. I can obviously consolidate all the properties together. I can consolidate that company with the 3 properties with other companies. So dimensions become very powerful as ways of tagging activity. And there's no right or wrong answer as to how we use the structure. We have some organizations that will have department as a segment in the account number. We have others that will have department as a dimension. One of the best things about Gravity is this flexibility. There obviously is some thought that goes in up front when you start to implement Gravity to say, how do we want to organize this? But we can do, for example, budgeting throughout the account number and throughout the dimensions. If I want to use, again, a department as a dimension, I can budget to that department still and use that in my financial reporting. So this, again, gives us lots and lots of flexibility, but it's really driven by each company's needs. With that, I'm going to stop for a moment and we're going to go in and take a look at Gravity itself. So let's jump in and take a look at Gravity. Gravity is a web-based application, which means there's nothing to install. You can run it in a browser with a good internet connection on a Windows machine, on an Apple machine. From that standpoint, it makes it very easy to be able to work remotely. Again, other than your security and the internet connection, you're basically open to a platform you want to use. Our menu on the left here is meant to be simple, not complex. When you look at some of the enterprise systems, you'll see sometimes 20, 30, 40 items on a menu that you may never use. Many of those items, you have to learn which ones not to use. We didn't want to build an application like that. We want to build an application that became rather intuitive. And you'll see down here the ability to switch between areas. So if I'm on the expense area, I have the option of using purchase orders and receiving those purchase orders, putting in bills, making payments, managing vendors. Intuitive, easy to learn, not very complex. We did not want to have a system that was hard to learn, took a long time to basically master. Changing companies, you'll see a list over here of companies that I have access to. Now, there could be more companies out there that I don't have access, so they're not in my list. Pick a company. All we're doing is changing a pointer in the database. We're not closing a company, opening a company. We're just pointing at a company, so you'll see my numbers here have changed because I'm referencing Constellation where before I was referencing Enterprise. Very easy and very fast to change companies. Again, not logging out, logging in, so on. You'll also see on my home dashboard, so this is one of our core dashboards that we ship with, you'll see access to some reports and to some of the screens that are also available on the menu. Our support tools. We have a very good online help system. We have a training video library. Hey, I haven't done 1099s in a year. I just want to watch a 2-minute video on how to do those. Also, our support portal where you can communicate with our support team, see the status of support issues, tips and techniques, so on. This is, again, our home dashboard. I'm going to take you to a Power BI dashboard. So Power BI is Microsoft's business intelligence tool. And the idea with Power BI is not that you're going to have a generic dashboard that looks pretty, but you're going to have a dashboard that's important to you. Creating a Power BI dashboard is a little bit more than doing graphing or analysis in a spreadsheet. So there's a bit of a learning curve, but it's very well documented since it's a Microsoft product and again built into our application. On this dashboard, I'm showing all my cash balances for all my companies at once. I don't have to open a company, put a number in Excel. I can see immediately where my money is. If I need to move money between companies, I know where it's at, for example. Now, I'm showing my European company in US dollars because I've chosen the consolidation currency of US dollars, so I can easily see that at any time in the consolidation currency as well as in the home currency if I were to go into that company. I'm showing a consolidated expense breakout here, but maybe when I do this, I don't want to see all my companies. I just want to see one company or 2 companies. So now I've just kind of isolated those 2 companies. I can change my date, to see it a little differently for a different time frame. The goal with the Power BI dashboard is to get rid of trying to run a lot of reports, to try to remove the need to pop everything into Excel and do all this analysis manually, is to be able to give people a tool to be able to see things quickly, interact with the data, and see things in a visual sense that may actually highlight things better than seeing them in a more report-oriented format. This is another Power BI dashboard. Again, my analysis of my cash balances. But here you're going to see companies and how they're performing against each other. So you'll see the revenue and so on. Of course, if I hover, I can see what that is. This is just another way of looking at, could I do this in a financial report? Absolutely. Put 3 or 4 companies on one report. But the point being is I may be able to better see this visually. So Power BI is a great tool to be able to do that with. I want to take you to now how we actually display data in Gravity. We display it in a grid or spreadsheet-like view. So columns going across, rows. We can again sort or filter by any column. So maybe I want to see a certain date range for a certain account. I can do that quickly. I can say, I want to create my own personal view here because there's things that I want to add to this, but other things that I don't need. So I'm going to remove a dimension that we're not using, and I'll start adding some columns. Maybe I want to add who created these transactions because I'm doing a little audit here and I want to know who's created these. So you'll see here where I can do that. Now I've added the Gravity admin as the created by. Anything in here, these are like typical browser links. You can click on it, open up the transaction itself. Goal here is to create views that are unique to you. I may have a view of expenses. I may have a certain type of vendor that I want to isolate, like all my office vendors, all my benefit vendors. So I want to create a view around their bills, their payments. I can do that easily. They'll be listed here in my views versus the standard out-of-the-box views. And I would do that by creating the columns, maybe even more complex filters, and going out and create that as a view, and now it's available for me next time I come in. You'll also see options like exporting to Excel. Every grid like this can be exported to Excel very easily. You don't have to do any type of manipulations. And again, based on security, every piece of the data is available. So again, if we go look at columns here, you'll see every column related to the journal transactions is available to me. And again, that gives you more flexibility, more capability to use the data as a database, not to be limited to only the certain ways that a creator of the software lets you look at it. Now that I have a view here, let me show you how we find data. So of course I can use my filtering here, but I also have some keyword types of filtering. So I can go in here. Now my star is a wildcard, and that says, doesn't matter, what comes before, but I'm going to type in the word motor because I'm looking for a payment we made, to General Motors. Well, you'll see that it found motor in 3 places here. I could have put in the document number. I could have put in an amount. And so it's searching this area to find all that information. So I can, with one click, open up that journal entry here, and that's going to give me, access to but I want to go back to the payment. So one more click, and I'm drilling back to, on the AP side, the payment side of this, which is giving me, I paid on 3/10, I paid a check out of Bank of America. So, and I can, one more click, I can go in to see the actual bills that were paid. So the goal here is being able to find data quickly. I'm just using my back browser button to go backwards on any piece of information that you have. So this is looking in this area. Up here, this is where I'm doing a universal search for the whole database. Now, this can take longer, so based upon what you're looking for and how big your database is, but you'll see I actually found the word ACE as part of a vendor, so came here, as with 116 bills, 23 notes. So that means notes are attachments. Notes are documents that are like PDFs, spreadsheets, so on, that are attached. We will search inside of standard documents that are attached. That means there's 23 attachments that are attached to various transactions that have the 3 letters ACE in them. If I click there, I can then go and drill in, and maybe it's a PDF, but we'll search inside there. Journal entries, purchase orders. So the goal here is to be able to do a universal search. I don't remember much about a transaction. I remember the amount, I remember some part of a name, so on. It's going to find it. Of course, there are filters over here to start filtering by dates and different activities so that you can narrow that down, because you could obviously get a very large data set when you're doing a global search like this. But our goal was to make it easy to find data. Let's start looking at a few different types of transactions. I'm going to, again, journal entries, this, again, the grid here that we had, the columns that we can edit, but I'm just going to open up a journal entry here. You'll see a couple of things here. Red stars mean these are required fields. The apply date, that is the GL period you want a transaction in. Unlike a lot of the entry level systems where they only give you one date on a transaction, for example, we give you all the transactional dates, but we also give you a separate apply date. So where this comes into play is, let's say I'm putting a bill in the system, and it's the date of the bill is September 1st, but they billed me late and I want it in my August financial reports. In some of the simpler systems, you would change the invoice date to August and it would go in your August financials. But that's not the date the vendor gave you. So all of a sudden it doesn't match and your due date's wrong because it's based off the invoice date. In Gravity, you can leave the invoice date September 1st, but change the apply date to August 31st. It's in your August books, but everything matches and everything's calculated properly from what the vendor sent you. So you'll see things like that. Recurring, a lot of the capabilities to have, journal entries that come back every month, bills that come back every month. You just set up what we call it a cycle. Is it monthly? Is it quarterly? So on. When does it stop? And they'll automatically come back. Reversing for accruals. And as we talked about currencies before, you'll see three currencies here. You'll see the currency that the company is in up here. I can't change that, of course. You'll see the functional currency, the currency of the transaction. Again, we can do any type of currency that you set up. So I could have yen or baht or whatever. And this is the currency that we get consolidated in. In this case, everything's US dollars, but I could be in a European company doing a British pound transaction consolidating US dollars. And of course, these currency rates would then come into play for my exchange rates. But let's look at a distribution here on this entry. You'll see here a typical journal entry, except you'll see a company code here. And you'll see account numbers, debits and credits, description, so on. These are my dimensions as they're set up right now, and some other information that gets used for tracking purposes, like where an entry came from. But let's look at this for a second. This is payroll, for example, and maybe I got my master payroll situation where I'm paying out of enterprise, my holding company, a $25,000 payroll. But I want to break that up into three companies. In a lot of systems, you would enter two due from balances here. Then you'd open up each company separately, make extra the transactions there. And again, if you forget to make one because you get stopped in the middle, you're going to be out of balance at the end of the month. Gravity, we have a balanced transaction, but when we post this, which is a commitment process in Gravity, we're going to get a $10,000 expense in Constellation and a $10,000 due to Enterprise. And Enterprise is automatically going to have a $10,000 due from. This one entry is going to make three transactions in Gravity for each of the three companies involved. Now imagine having 50 companies and again a master payroll. So I want to go out here, I want to import my payroll in from my payroll system, and I would drop the file here, whether it be a standard CSV or so on, hit next, and then I pick the right template. We can set up as many templates as we need to match the payroll system that you're using to match whatever, and hit next, and then if it's 800 lines, it could take 3 minutes or so. It will fill this out. And now I just review it, hit post, and Gravity makes 50 transactions. You don't have to individually do each one, for example. Talked about notes. Notes can be PDFs. Notes can be documents. They can be just information. You can enter a very complex amount of text here that, for example, auditors coming in a year from now can look at this and say, oh, here's my payroll journal, but we had to make a change, so I'm documenting the fact that we changed from what the journal said, why we changed it, so on. And again, I could put a whole series of documents and notes and so on attached to this one transaction. So we've looked at kind of how things work from a journal entry level. Let's look at how they work from an AP level. I'm going to go to vouchers. And again, you'll see that simple menu of purchase orders if needed, entering vouchers, and so on. So we have several ways of entering vouchers. You'll see these top three here. I'm going to take you to the first one, which is called our AP automation. This is where we get the ability to enter bills right from a PDF. So what happens is I can upload from my desktop. So if I'm the AP person and I get like 100 emails today with bills on them, I can upload 100 PDFs. Or easier, I can give my suppliers an email address, ap at company. And that will automatically forward to our engine that will show up then here. What I've done is I highlighted the first one. Let's just move some things so we have a little bit more room here to work so we can see a little bit more. And I can make this bigger or smaller, but basically what the system does, and we use an AI engine from Microsoft that's geared specifically for PDFs. It read this document and it created this data for me. It's giving me, for example, a warning because I may already have this document in Gravity. So it's telling me, just be careful, this could be a duplicate. Since it's reading a PDF, it's not always 100%. So we're getting what's called a confidence level. I'm 98% confident I got this document number. I'm 98% confident I got the invoice. Now, the apply date, as I said, you could change this to be November if you wanted to be in November financials versus the August date that's on here. So you'll see that here. You'll see here where we can highlight different fields and you'll see some controls. We have situations where maybe there's an invoice number here, there's a order number here, there's another number, and the system reads and gets the wrong number in the wrong place. Maybe this really isn't the invoice number. I could put my cursor, I could delete this, put my cursor in here, go like this, and the pencil will insert whatever I'm looking at into that field. So I don't have to remember to copy it or type it in, or so just, again, getting it in easier. We have line items. Line items would be coming from what you read here. And so I can easily go out and have all my detail here. First off, we have a machine learning algorithm that remembers how you use companies before, how you use account numbers in the past, and even how you use dimensions over here if we're using dimensions. So for example, it knew that last time I had an item from this vendor and there was a service call on it, I put it to account 1130. So that way, it remembers that. Can I change it? Absolutely. But the goal here is not having to change it and not having to remember every time. Companies, we can change companies here. I want to go out and say, I want to be able to put this line item in Constellation, not in Enterprise. So I can go out here, I can type in Constellation, and now this is going to come into Constellation instead of Enterprise. Back to my multi-company capabilities. I'm going to have this line item as an expense in Constellation. The due tos and due froms are all going to be balanced between Constellation and, in this case, Enterprise that's going to have this bill in its AP system. What we find with our AP automation is A, we get bills in much faster. So we're basically looking at the PDF bill. I hit create voucher, go to the next one. Review it, create voucher, go to the next one. So I'm getting them in faster and I'm getting more accuracy because I got all the line item details that were here off of this. So if someone, let's say a year from now says, what were all the expenses on building 468? I can go back to my universal search that can search all the database and type in 468 and get all of this information in. Now, as an AP person, I may not put all that in because it just takes me too long, so I'm just going to put in the summaries. So it really makes it easier to be able to get the data in to our AP system faster. You'll see also a couple of buttons up here. I have an allocate button. Allocations are something that we have throughout Gravity, but one of the options here is what's called an allocation group. Maybe this is a benefit bill. I'm just going to go benefit like this. What this really means is behind that, I have a table that says 10% of the benefits amount goes to this company, this account, so on. 20%, 30%, so it's a different. So I could have a listing of 10 different line items there, all broken out by percentage, that I always take my benefits. Even though the benefit amount changes every month, I don't have to worry about that. It's going to take and reallocate in the capabilities that I had before. And you'll see we have a description here, and these just override what was in the benefit group. That's one way of being able to manage allocations. We do have other ways of doing allocations also in Gravity. Composing, maybe I have like 200 lines on here. I don't need all 200 in my AP. I could compose. It shrinks it down to one line, and I can then manipulate from there. I don't have to delete 200 lines manually, for example. Well, again, happy. We create voucher, go to the next one. So we're getting the data in there much faster. And then, of course, let's just take a look at what that bill would look like. That bill coming into Gravity, that $22,000 bill with the 8/14 dates on it. We see the line items here as they were entered, the accounts as they were brought in, so on. Now, again, you'll see the same allocate capability and such. As we're looking at this, first off, when we did the process of creating the voucher, it automatically attaches the PDF here. So I don't have to go out there and manually do that type of work. Now, again, as an auditor a year from now comes in, they've got documentation here of what the vendor sent in this way. If I go back to my summary, again, the apply date, I can change this to be another month like this. So this is going into my September financials, even though they billed me early and I want to keep this date. You'll start to see approvals throughout Gravity. So here's an approval grid. And what it's doing is documenting the fact that right now we have an approval pending with this person. Now, based upon the dollar value, based upon the type of purchase, so on, it may need 2 or 3 approvals. Based upon the type of vendor, it may be routed to different people. Basically, IT purchases by the CTO get approved, so on. But how do the approvals actually get made? The easiest way to do an approval in Gravity is to do an approval in an email message. So here I am in my email system, and you'll see I'm just opening my email. I get an approval document. And you'll see the details that we saw before. You'll see whatever information. So this whole area here is completely configurable. Do we need to tell them who created it? Do we need to tell them which company? We can or can't. Do I want them to be able to do the approval right here? I mean, this is important because number one, they don't have to learn a new system. Number two, they're not coming into the accounting system and starting to look around, even though they're security and they can't push buttons, they're going to see things in there that they start, what does this do, and so on. And there's no training. They basically just open their email, review this. Oh, the PDF, by the way, is here too. So they can get a copy of what the vendor sent if you want them to and say, yep, I like this. This is the right layout. I'm going to approve it. And it will then tell Power Automate that it's been approved. And then Power Automate will go to the next step, which means maybe a second approval or just posting the transaction automatically for me so nobody has to manually do that. But the goal here is to make it easier and simpler to do approvals without having to, train your staff and so on. We have different options here so they can do approvals this way. We have an overall approval dashboard that just isolates approvals themselves. We also have the ability to have approvals done in products like Teams. If you're using the Microsoft stack, you can have Microsoft Teams where there's approval objects inside of there. It really just depends upon where you want to take and bring your people. But the ability to basically have a whole approval system built in makes it really nice and easy. Finally, we would go and we would actually build a batch of payments. And as we build a batch of payments, we have different payment mechanisms. So we do still print checks, paper checks. I can do a ACH electronic payment. I can do an ACH to file. This is where a lot of our users like to use their bank's bill pay service because it's free and they may have a relationship with their bank that makes it easier. Usually with accounting systems, you have to do work twice. You have to go to your bank and say, pay 50 vendors, then they come into your accounting system and you have to mark them all as paid. With Gravity, you can basically mark them all as paid in Gravity and create a specific file. Then you go to your bank and you just upload and say, pay this file, which has 50 vendors in it and all the details, the dates, the amounts, and so on. So this just makes it really simpler to work in that environment, if that makes sense for you. I would basically go out here, I would create a batch and process that batch. Again, I'm going to kind of take you now into some reporting areas so you just get a sense of some of the capabilities there as we start to kind of close up this kind of overview. Now, there's a lot of depth that we can go to in Gravity in each of these areas. You'll see here lots of reports that we've got created, but I'm going to take you to our advanced reporting. Advanced financial statements. So we do have standard financial statements where you can go out there and I just want to run a detailed balance sheet or I want to run a P&L. But you can create your own reports. You can go out here and say, I want to create a consolidated P&L my way. And what does that mean? Well, we'll run this one and take a look. So your way means you define the columns, companies, for example. You define the rows, how I want it broken out. So you'll see I have 4 companies here that I'm putting into this financial report. And in this case, I'm also only showing 75% of my joint venture because this is basically, I don't own 100% of that company. And even though we do 100% of the accounting, I only want to show my share in this report. So this makes it really nice and easy. I could have 50 columns on here. I'm showing companies, but each column is independent. It could be a date based, it could be company based, it could be dimension based. I can drill back, of course. I click on a number and then I start clicking back till I go to the source documents. I also have the ability here to break it out and show my dimensions going up and down. So it's just an option when you're setting up the report. So we control the columns and we control the rows. Let's look at another version of this. Let's look at a budget to actual report, because of course Gravity has budgeting capability. We also let you have multiple budgets for the same period. So in this case, kind of same layout, but now I'm showing our actuals for one company, Enterprise, my original budget, variance, revised budget, variance. On one page, I'm showing a lot of information for one company. Again, it makes it really nice and easy because I can show another company over here with the same information, so I can see it kind of that way. You decide, because the columns and the rows are up to you. Here's one where we have it, let's say, for workman's comp reporting. So once a quarter, you have to go out there and maybe report workman's comp wages and so on. So I've taken all my wages and summarized them in one place for the quarter. And that just makes it, I can just run this report and it'll show me the quarter, for example, and broken out differently because I can control, again, the rows here. So reporting is very, very strong in Gravity. I'll take you to, just as an example of an AP aging report, where we're going to run this report for all entities. As I said, we can consolidate financial reports. We can also consolidate reports based upon operational pieces. So this is going to be an aging where I'm consolidating 13 companies, all my vendors as of this date, and we'll just hit run. So this is going out there, and some of my vendors are being shared. Some of them are not being shared, so depending upon how the vendor is set up. We'll see in a second. So let's take a look at this. Here I have Sam Smith. He's a shared vendor, and you'll see the entities here that have bills with Sam. So I owe Sam $26,000 across all of my companies. Of course, I can drill into the vendor, drill into the documents, but the goal here is I don't have to run 3, 4, 5, 10 different AP agings and put them together in Excel. I can run one aging with all my companies or selected companies, because you can select at the top here which companies you want to have in this report. So the goal here, again, is to make this something that is unique in that when you have more than one organization or company that you're managing, and you have all the intercompany activities that are coming through and you have to do those manually, you want to be able to do more advanced reporting across companies or within companies and so on. Gravity has all the capabilities to do that. And again, we've tried to keep it in what we call an easy to use application that is a lot simpler than the big enterprise applications, a lot less expensive to implement and license. Hopefully you got a chance to see some of the great features in Gravity. Our sales team would love to talk to you if you have any more questions. Thank you for taking some time to look at Gravity.